It is my great pleasure to welcome you to a very special man. This man was the very first man who joined us, courageously joined us in the Living Abundance Mastermind. And I'd like to take a moment to introduce you to Neil, and then he'll be sharing his story with you today. So Neil Lawson helps successful business owners who feel the business owned them to decimate their to-do list, make money doing less, and regain the balance and fun in their lives. How very important, Neil. Welcome, welcome. Lovely to have you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. Yeah, the first man in your group.
Yeah, what was that like, being the first man into the space of powerful women?
It was a little daunting, to be honest. It was a little bit intimidating. And as I'll say a little bit more in a bit, but also because, my business where it was, it looks as though I've got all my ducks in order, really. It looks like I know what I'm doing. And it's been very vulnerable and very exposing to come in and do, some of the things that I'm doing at the moment. So, but everybody's beautiful. So I have felt very, very welcome and held, which has been lovely.
That's gorgeous. You paved the way for more men joining us too. So thank you, thank you.
Yes, there's now one other at least, isn't there?
Yes, exactly. And more are coming.
Yeah.
So beautiful. So tell us a little bit about you. Tell us a bit about where you were at before you joined us in the Living Abundance Mastermind.
Okay. Successfully coaching. This is my third self-employed business. And I've had 6-figure years before. My rates are good. I'm getting clients, sales calls, and all that kind of good stuff. It's all working. And then what was happening was the results were dying away for some reason that I just could not figure out. There was no logic to it. I couldn't learn a way around whatever it was that was happening. And there was this sword of Damocles kind of feeling for me of, my experience told me that sooner or later this thing would happen. And I didn't know what to do to stave that off or to fix it when it arrived. So there's this real frustration and tension around, yay, this is going really, really well. And now what's going to happen at some indeterminate point in the future when it all goes pear-shaped? And it was really, really frustrating. And I was giving myself an incredibly hard time because I can obviously do it. So what's wrong with me, that it all goes wrong?
Goodness. Thank you for sharing with us a bit about where you were at. And it's I really think it's also especially powerful to hear from men talking vulnerably about what's going on inside those brains of ours. So I really appreciate you sharing that. So tell us what's been happening for you, and when you came into the mastermind, what are some of the shifts, changes, experiences that you've been having? We can talk inner game, but also want to talk about the outer results as well.
Yeah, the big thing overall for me was leadership of myself. And that was a complete surprise because, I've come from a project management IT background, and in my work, I lead clients out when we lead clients, don't we? That's what we do. So I thought I had this pretty much down pat. But what's actually happened is that working inside this container, what I needed to do was go all the way back down into the foundations and unpick what I thought I was and discover some new things about myself. And that was really, continues to be really vulnerable, really exposing in the group, particularly as a man, because I've got that kind of male ego of, I've sorted. And, some of the emotions and the tears in front of the camera, no disrespect, that's something that you traditionally, associate with women doing. And here I am doing exactly that thing. And it was really, it continues to be really quite tough. It's a level of leadership that I did not know existed, to be honest. So that inner game is very much about leading myself. It's something that you've said a lot of times about stepping up, taking radical responsibility, leading yourself, getting yourself what you need, working out what that is, and then staying in that day-to-day moment to moment. And yeah, that's what I need to learn. Yeah, it's a level of leadership that I hadn't realized existed. And it's something that I've needed to learn. This is the bit that I've been missing before, and has occasionally, you know, every now and then comes back to trip me up, is not being able to be deep enough, foundational level enough to see what's actually happening for me before it begins to derail what I'm actually doing.
Can you tell me a little bit more about the difference between the kind of old version of doing and functioning in your six-figure career versus this new level of leadership that includes maybe vulnerability and emotions? I know this is quite like, it is harder for men, and I'm wondering, as a man, can you tell us a little bit about that, about what you feel the difference is between how you're kind of taught to be, or you should be to succeed, and versus this kind of more heart-aligned, authentic, whole way of leading in your life and business?
Yeah, it's very, very similar. So similar that it's almost, sometimes it's difficult to catch myself when I'm in, to know whether I'm in one or the other. And at the same time, they are dramatically different, totally different. And I now know that when I'm in my old way of doing things, that's just riding for a fall, because that is exactly the pattern that I used to have. This new way of being is much more intuitive, much more open, much more led rather than directed from myself, which is, you know, from 25 years in IT, I've always run my own projects. I've always got my own project plans. I know what I'm doing. I know where I'm going. And that was how I was running my business previously. What I'm open to now is actually not knowing what I'm doing. And it's just kind of a bit of a, okay, be okay with not actually knowing what I'm doing and what I'm doing, and being vulnerable and expectant of something else to turn up. I remember when I was thinking about coming into this work with you, I wasn't sure what it was. There was something was drawing me into, you know, I don't need another course. I don't need to do all this. I know what I'm doing. But there was something drawing me to it, and that's been my experience of that feeling growing more and more, is, oh yeah, this is for me. I don't know why, and that's okay to not know why, but there was a draw, and it's been fabulous. The 5 months I've been in this program so far have been amazing.
Very brave, isn't it, following that kind of intuition when it doesn't the mind or the logic doesn't quite know what that is yet. So
and as a recovering planner, particularly, because that's how I've got my success over the years, is by planning things and being responsible for the outcome. And now I recognize one of my big challenges going forward is not being responsible for the outcome, being responsible for doing the work, but letting go of control. That's that continues to be a juggling act for me.
Gosh, letting go of control. Oh, the worst. And it's a funny thing, isn't it? Because it's not about throwing the baby out with the bathwater, but it's recognizing where some of those coping strategies that got you to a certain level of success, where they start kind of shooting in the foot a little bit as well, right? They're useful, we want them, but not overpowered, because then it sort of starts turning against you without even realizing. But you're like, this is how I do things, this is how I survive, this is how I succeed. And then if you try and strip that away, it's incredibly uncomfortable, right?
Yeah, and that's been what I mean by it's difficult to know where I am. I see myself dropping back into it. You pull me up from time to time on that. I'm learning to see when I have dropped back in, but it's almost like the width of a shadow, really, the difference between these two things. But they are night and day in terms of the effect and how much fun it is, how much nicer, how much smoother and more gentle life is actually working like this.
Oh, that's so beautiful. And you have created a really beautiful life for yourself, right? Like, in so many ways, you're living a dream life, and so many things are working, correct?
Yeah, and we live on the Norfolk coast in Cromer, and the sea is about 100 yards that way. And it's absolutely beautiful. The place we live is amazing, and it's all worked out so beautifully. Everything that I've manifested has come about, except for this mine that I occasionally run over and blow myself up with. And that's really added to the frustration, is that on the surface, we have it all. It's been fantastic. And that makes it even more, for me at least, even more uncomfortable to go in the group and say, okay, guys, again. But that's what the leadership is all about, is noticing that and actually being able to say, yep, I've got it wrong again.
Yeah, and for me, this sort of authentic leadership style is around all these things are working, all these things are great, and I'm struggling, and that's okay. And there's things that we're all struggling with, and basically everyone's struggling with something. It's just we're pretending not to, and that's fine. We still have to show up professionally and do our jobs, but right, the vulnerability of asking for help and being supported, which I think is very brave. So well done you. So with this inner process of slightly gripping, letting go some of the control grip and working a bit more with intuition and allowing things to flow and creating in your life and business from a different place, not completely different, but with different energy. What are some of the results that you've experienced? What are some of the takeaways that you've experienced so far you'd like to share?
Oh, wow. Well, the big thing has been that my vision has just gone, my mission has massively expanded, and it wasn't what I expected, because I knew my mission is here to serve people. I've been served in the past by amazing coaches and mentors, and that was always my purpose, to give that back. But what's happened is that's expanded massively. Actually, on the last retreat weekend, I think was when that really landed in for me. And it's now, there's a book in there. I'm 26,000 words into a book, which I never ever planned to be doing. And there's a mission now around, it's a work in progress, but it's around masculine. I've seen a lot of groups, a lot of people, a lot of women doing work on their feminine and growing the power of the feminine and re-establishing where they are and who they are. And I totally support that. It's leaving me wondering now, what about the guys? What about the masculine in all of this? And what seems to be landing for me is the baton to take up masculine energy and work out what is good, what is healthy, what is wholesome, what less so, and try and bring that into coaching and life and commerce for myself, but also to be, frankly, to be an example of that in the world. And the irony of being an example of, hey, I'm the way a man should be, is not lost on me, because that's exactly how a man should not be behaving. But so I'm still working all of this out, but the vision is just enormous, and it scares the pants off me, and it's not at all what I expected would happen when I came into this 12-month program to look at wealth and abundance, which is what it says on the tin. And that's not at all the way it's worked out for me.
Well, this is it. It's like you've let go of control, right? Everything, and to actually expand it into something bigger. Right. So this is where the wealth and abundance comes into it, because actually there's more that wants to come into your life. And then that wealth is calling you into more, right? And then also, who do I want to be as a wealthy, powerful man in business, as well as another question.
Totally. And I understood that at a cerebral kind of level, because I think you can't really get success without knowing this, who do I want to be, modeling, that kind of idea. But this, who do I really want to be? And the fact that that could really be so different from how I used to be. And that's challenging. That's what's a complete identity change. And it's tough to get my head around. And then I remember I'm not supposed to be in my head. I'm supposed to be here. And it's a lot easier like that. But it's all kind of, it's messy. It's messy in the middle of the moment.
Yeah, and that is the truth. It is messy in the middle, and especially when we're going through change, and it's very stressful for our brain going through change and identity shifts and changes.
Lord, yeah.
It really
so I'm trying not to do as much as I can.
You're doing very, very well. And this is it. It's like that letting go of control, we do not like that look real good. And yet actually when we let go, because we only know what we know, and we can, there's so many things. What I know about you is all those planning and the logic and that, what we call that masculine energy, isn't going to go away. It's a skill that you have and a skill you'll still use, right?
Totally.
Need it. But it's sort of when it just over dominates. And I think sometimes we talk a little bit about the wounded masculine sometimes, which is when we're just kind of, or pushing or forcing and trying to make things happen that's disconnected from ourselves and disconnected from each other. And we're just logicking, we're just taking our brains into things without our whole self, right? So include some feelings. So it's sort of, my vision is that we're balancing both, you know, that masculine and feminine, or the yin and yang, right? The sensitive, the feeling, and the head, right? And trying to be a bit more integrated.
And that's part of the big vision for me, is that I see so much that masculine energy out there in the world. Well, I came across it in IT and financial services. It is all head, plans, risk aversion. You know, how do you get from there to there? And no heart, no empathy, no compassion. Shooting people up and spitting them out. And it's not just in that industry, it's across the board. And that is elements of the masculine: being competitive, being successful, driving yourself for better, but at any cost, not happy with that. So that's an integral part of this massive new vision. And I have no idea where or how that's going to play out, but that's come to me, so that's what I will do.
It's so beautiful, and you said yes to it, and one step at a time. And I think this is the thing with big vision. You know, I work with big vision a lot, and it's uncomfortable because you don't necessarily know, right? But we keep following, and like one step at a time. And again, you know, chipping away. This book's coming out of nowhere. Like, things are happening. It's just not coming from that thinking.
It's extraordinary. Write a book. Well, everyone thinks about writing a book, but I had absolutely no plans to do that, and suddenly it comes out 1,000 words at a time. And I was like, where did that all?
That's amazing.
It's extraordinary. It's more like channeling it and writing it. And that's a new and different experience for me. I do like it.
That is, yeah, well, it's kind of tapping into creativity, isn't it? And that it sort of, yeah, brings in a new element of life into your work, right? It's the life-giving energy, totally. Even though the brain's like, what's going on? So is there anything else that's on your heart or in your head that you would like to share about anything else within your kind of journey with this work so far?
Yes. This is not your average coaching program. This is not your average 12-month, you know, business, abundance, wealth kind of program. This is radical self-responsibility, really, is what this is. I love how you do it. It was, I'll be honest, it was a culture shock coming into it, because the kind of style I've been used to is, here are the tools and here's how you use them. Oh, no, don't do it quite like that, you know, like this. And my experience in the program has been, well, here are the tools, go and use them. And there is lots of support and holding around that, but it's much more about, here are the tools, you go and use them. There's not hand holding like I'm used to in here. And that's dramatically different from things that I've experienced in the past before, but it is exactly what I need. And I see other people in the program who have kind of, oh Lord, what's this all about? And the strides that they're actually making with it is fantastic to watch. The program is set up to teach what we need to learn, which is radical self-responsibility. I think the problem is that none of us realise that's what we were lacking when we came in. Because I think you don't, until you know the problem, you don't appreciate the solution. So it's not for the faint-hearted. It's not your average kind of program. But my God, you have created a really, really good container here, Lara. It is awesome stuff.
Thank you, Neil. Yes, that's it. It's a self-leadership, but we're so used to, I think we're really been trained in kind of giving our power away, you know, following someone else and doing someone else's steps. And the reason why this program is as it is because I've invested so much money and time in following someone else's steps and someone else's way. And someone else's strategy, and I just found it wouldn't really click in. Like it was, some things would kind of work, but not quite work. And I would get so stressed trying to squeeze myself into someone else's model. And what I know is we all have a business model inside of us. We all have it inside, but we have to be brave enough to go in and find it. We definitely need help and support, but that vision lives inside of you, and as you're seeing, and as I know, but it's sort of like, again, we want to be sometimes told what to do, or how do we do this? And yes, step by step, and yes, you know, I'm working on you know, making it a bit more systematized, but also the truth is it's a non-linear path, stepping into our heart and soul.
And inevitably, if you were to, as with other programs, if you were to present, well, this is how you do it, and this is what happens, and here is the sequence, I wouldn't learn my way, I would learn your way.
Yeah.
And your way is inevitably not going to be right for me. What this has allowed is, here's a bunch of building blocks, fit them together in a way that works for you, and here's 12 months while we all work out what that sequence actually looks like. It's a totally different animal.
That's really interesting to hear. And this is it. And I've held this container for so long now that I know people get amazing results. It's just a bit uncomfortable for our brain, where we want step, 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 step. And yes, there are steps. But what I've learned, you know, doing this work for so long, is that it doesn't, those exact steps, like I said, they don't work for everybody. So a few people will be able to slip into them. But I'm like, you actually know inside of you, I'll give you a guideline, and then you go play, and then let's watch the magic happen. But it does take quite a lot of trust and faith and courage, and the willingness to go in and feel and find yourself within it all, right? Who am I? What do I want? And your creative power.
And what's been beautiful, and what's absolutely gorgeous about how you are in this container, is you've got such a massive heart, and you are such a lovely, warm, inclusive, fierce advocate for all of us. It feels okay to be doing that kind of really messy, uncomfortable stuff, because it's held, and it's really lovely parenting what you do. It's beautiful. We can make mistakes and fall over, and that's okay. We'll just pick ourselves up and brush ourselves off, but we will learn to walk by the end of it.
Yes, exactly. Well, amazing. It's very brave, bold, heart work, as you know, I like to call it. Yes, we work hard, but it comes from the heart. So rather than that pushing, striving, forcing, making, yes, we take a lot of action, but we're trying to do this from a slightly different place. So thank you. And I'm really grateful to you as a man in the world, speaking openly and honestly from the heart. I think we need more of that. And I really appreciate you. Thank you for coming and sharing your story with us.
Thank you. Pleasure.